Thank you, Councilman. We want to call the Economic Development and Jobs Committee to order for Tuesday, December the 2nd, 2025, here in room 401 of City Hall. Mr. Clerk, why don't you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Price.
Here.
Councilmember Soto Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Hurtado.
Here.
Councilmember Nazarian.
Present.
Councilmember Park, absent. 4 members and a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, we're going to begin the meeting with public comment, as we always do. When we're done with that, though, members, I'm going to recommend that we take items 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8 on consent, which will leave us with items 4 and 7 to consider in our meeting. So with that, item 6 on consent as well, yes. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Would you like to pull 6?
Please.
Okay, we'll pull 6. Okay, so Ms. Clerk, why don't you call give the instructions for public comment.
Members of the public wishing to give public comment can sign up at the kiosk in the back. You'll have 1 minute per item on the agenda for a total of up to 2 minutes for 2 or more agenda items. And you will also have 1 minute for general public comment. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and identify what item you would like to speak to.
Before the first speaker, I will call up a few names. Feel free to line up behind the podium. Ani Boyajian, Aquilina Verzosa, and Armando Gudin.
Ani Boyajian for general public comment on item 7, please. Ani Boyajian with CCA speaking in opposition to the recommendations contained in the CLA report for item 7. Safe, fair workplaces are the foundations of strong businesses, thriving communities, and opportunities for employees. And employers are firmly committed to protecting workers' rights and complying with employment laws. However, these recommendations were made without any consultation to the business community and would impose damaging consequences on every employer in Los Angeles, from major industries to the city's thousands of small and minority-owned businesses that struggle every day to keep their doors open. The current recommendations would 1. Threaten employee privacy by releasing sensitive employee information to third-party entities without additional regulations or safeguards in place. 2. Wrongfully target industries based on unproven allegations instead of evidence-based investigations. 3. Result in costly duplicative services at a time where the city is experiencing a financial crisis. Businesses play a critical role in Los Angeles. They create jobs, generate taxes that pay for critical city services, attract foot traffic and opportunity, and much more. Those that create jobs deserve a seat at the table to ensure we develop balanced, impartial, effective, and fiscally responsible solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Aquilina Soriano Versosa. I'm the Executive Director of the Filipino Workers Center and a part of the Executive Committee of the LA Workers Center Network. Filipino Workers Center, we've been working on this issue. We actually helped to fight for a minimum wage ordinance and the establishment of OWS. And because wage theft is an ongoing issue in LA and OWS, we are looking to make it strong and to be able to support all workers of all industries. We represent a lot of home care workers, and all of our cases, we've won over actually 10 million in back wages for home care workers, and all of their cases include overtime. So unfortunately, we're not able to use OWS to bring their cases of LA residents because OWS does not yet enforce overtime in meal and rest breaks. So we support adopting and funding the CLA OWS recommendations, which would expand them to be able to have the authority to enforce and investigate violations of overtime, meal rest break, and also late pay, and to be able to use individual liability for effective enforcement. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
My name is Armando Udino, Executive Director of the Los Angeles Workers Center Network, here today on behalf of the thousands of low-wage workers who keep this city running every single day. We strongly support the CLA's report and urge this committee to fully adopt the recommendations without delay. Los Angeles is facing a theft crisis, a wage theft crisis of historic proportions. We are seeing unprecedented levels of unpaid overtime, missed meal and rest breaks, and wages that fail to meet even the legal minimum wage. For low-income families already struggling with unaffordable housing and unlivable wages, this is a devastating impact. And in the midst of the ongoing immigration raids in Los Angeles, undocumented workers are more vulnerable than ever before, afraid that a bad or nefarious employer will retaliate by calling ICE if they speak up. The CLA report gives Los Angeles a clear path forward, prioritizing the lowest wage workers. Expanding OWS authority will investigate overtime, rest and meal break, and late pay violations, establishing a strong complaint prioritization system, creating transparency through a public repository. Was that 2 minutes?
Yes.
Got it.
I'll now call a few more names. Roxana Tynan, Carmen Gutierrez, Cesar Jacobo.
Hello, my name is Carmen Gutierrez. I'm an organizer with the Clean Car Wash Workers Center. The car wash industry continues to be plagued with rampant wage theft violations, especially in the capital of wage theft, LA. It is very common for employers to violate minimum wage laws, fail to provide paid sick leave, no rest breaks, or overtime, to just name a few. Car wash workers are living through unprecedented times. Wage theft, loss of income due to the fires in the beginning of the year, the rain, and now they have become a target for racial profiling through the raids by federal agents at car washes. Families were already experiencing hardships before these raids, and the raids have only exacerbated them. Car wash workers' incomes have been reduced significantly due to the loss of hours and workplaces having to close due to the threats of agents in the area. Because of this, we are seeking. Can I get 20
Yeah,
seconds?
just finish your statement.
Yeah, thank you. Because of this, we are seeing an increase in car washes that are permanently closing and leaving workers without any source of livelihood. So today, we are asking that when these employers shut down their businesses because they are trying to evade liability and continue to increase their profits, we are asking that the Office of Wage Standards please prioritize individual liability of enforcement cases even after businesses have shut down.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es César Jacobo. Voy a hablar a favor del artículo 7.
Hi,
Llevo
my name is,
32
un momento. Hi, my name is Cesar Jacobo, and I'm here to support item 6.
Llevo 32 años trabajando en la industria del car wash. Soy miembro líder del Centro de Trabajadores de CLIM.
I have been working at a car wash for the last 32 years, and I'm one of the lead members at the Clean organization.
Mi experiencia en la industria del car wash ha sido el robo de salario. No nos pagaban el overtime, no me daban mis 10 minutos de descanso.
And in my experience, I have had wage theft, especially for overtime pay, and I haven't been given my 10-minute breaks.
También fui víctima de abuso verbal por parte del dueño y los managers.
I've also been a victim of verbal abuse by the manager as well as the owner.
Tuve que aguantar todas estas injusticias por miedo a perder mi trabajo.
And I had to tolerate all of these injustices out of fear of losing my job
Y por miedo a ser despedido injustamente.
and for fear of being unfairly fired.
Por eso estoy aquí y les pido a los concejales que las protecciones sean más fuertes para que el robo de salario pare y el acoso a los trabajadores también. Gracias,
And so
concejal.
I'm here to ask all of you council members to provide stronger recommendations for the office so that we can stop the wage theft and we can stop the harassment. Thank you.
I will now call a few more names. Cleety Causing, Flor Melendrez, Fons Fontanares.
Hello, my name is Clyde Cosing. I'm one of the labor organizers with the Filipino Workers Center, and I'd like to address the opposition groups mischaracterizing the CLA's proposal. Business groups argue co-enforcement will be biased, but CLA's proposal models successful frameworks in San Francisco, Seattle, and Chicago, where collaboration between government and community partners has led to higher compliance and fewer disputes. A public repository promotes transparency and accountability, listing only final determinations, not unproven allegations, which means that employers acting in good faith have nothing to fear. Far from harming small businesses, OWS reforms support small businesses by leveling the playing field against bad actors who underpay workers. And partnership with community organizations like the LA Worker Centers Network are designed to educate both workers and employers and prevent violations, as well as ensure fairness for all parties.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Flor Melendrez, and I proudly serve as the Executive Director of the Clean Car Wash Worker Center. We are here to urge you to support in the motion to expand OWS authority and make it a truly effective resource for low-wage and immigrant workers. These changes must be codified in municipal code. Without codification, any progress can be undone and simply change in administration. Since 2007 until now, I can tell you that we haven't seen a wage and hour claim case that does not involve violations to overtime, rest, and meal breaks. Some may ask, why don't we just simply make these claims at the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement at the DLSC? Well, CLEAN has been side by side by many workers, supporting them in the partnership with allied legal organizations, and together we have brought forward some of the biggest wage claims in history. But the process has taken us closer to 5 years. By then, most employers have disappeared or hidden their assets, making their process a waste of time and resource and hope. The OWS has now the power to change that and will reflect in our communities in need. I urge this committee to act, to stand with the workers, and to keep our communities running. Codify these protections and make Los Angeles an example in our fight against wage theft. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fons Fontanares, organizer of Filipino Workers Center. We handle wage theft cases, and we know that the California Labor Commissioner's Office takes over 3 years to process a wage theft claim. And we believe that justice delayed is justice denied. We wanted the LA Office of Wage Standards to accept claims of minimum wage violations that include non-payment of overtime and non-payment of meal and rest breaks. We at Filipino Workers Center, we support adopting and funding the Chief Legislative Analyst, or CLA, OWS recommendations. And we also encourage the adoption of individual liability laws in order to hold bad actors accountable. Thank you.
I will call a few more names. Gloria Miguel, Jackie Romero, Jacqueline Iniguez, Elizabeth Mitchell.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gloria Miguel del Centro de Trabajadores de la Costura.
Hi, my name is Gloria Miguel from the Garment Workers Center.
Apoyamos firmemente las recomendaciones del reciente informe del Análisis Legislativo Principal CLA de la Oficina de Normas Salariales OWS.
We're here to strongly support the recommendations in the CLA report regarding the Office of Wage Standards, OWS.
Como organización que representa a los trabajadores de la costura con bajos salarios, nos unimos hoy a otros trabajadores para instar a los miembros del Consejo a responder a las crisis de robo de salario en nuestra ciudad.
So we are here as an organization that represents garment workers, who are some of the workers that have lower salaries, and we unite with other organizations to respond to this crisis of wage theft that is happening in the city.
El 88% de los trabajadores del condado de Los Ángeles experimentan infracciones salariales. Yo también experimenté esto cuando trabajaba en la industria de la costura. El CLA recomienda sabiamente que se otorgue a la OWS la autoridad para hacer cumplir e investigar las infracciones de las horas extras y descansos y pagos atrasados.
And so in 88% of LA County, of workers in LA County have experienced some sort of wage theft. And I personally have experienced it myself while working in the garment industry. And so we are here to support the recommendations to give OWS the right to be able to investigate these cases, especially with the cases that have to do with wage theft for overtime, for lack of breaks, and for back pay.
Que las personas con salario más bajo de Los Ángeles tengan prioridades en las reclamaciones y que se crea un programa de cumplimiento específico para investigar los lugares o industrias con altas tasas de infracciones en el lugar de trabajo.
And so we also support for some of the workers with the lowest salaries to have priority for these claims, and to also create some sort of program where there's accountability for these businesses who have had numerous cases of the wage theft.
Los trabajadores que se enfrentan del día a día, pero también enfrentan miles y millones de dólares en el robo de salario cada semana merecen su atención y protección ahora.
So workers who have to face this day to day and who are being robbed millions of dollars each week from their wages deserve to have this priority and deserve to be taken care of and protected.
Como sabemos que los trabajadores inmigrantes como los jornaleros y los lavaautos se han convertido en el blanco central de las autoridades migratorias.
And as you know, immigrant workers such as day laborers as well as car washers are the main target for a lot of the attacks that is happening with immigration.
Los trabajadores inmigrantes no pueden confiar en los sistemas federales para obtener protección o justicias. Los trabajadores que temen represalia de ICE por denunciar violaciones necesitan que el gobierno de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, ahora más que nunca, garantice una aplicación rigurosa en las normas salariales.
And so as immigrant workers, we don't have the trust in federal authorities to be able to provide justice for what is happening. And there are a lot of employers that are using ICE as a way as a repercussion for people who speak out. And so at this time, more than any other time, we need Los Angeles to stand up and to be able to protect its workers.
Por favor, adopten hoy las recomendaciones de CLA. Gracias.
Please adopt CLA's recommendations today. Thank you.
Buenos días, pinche babosos, sangrones que roban el dinero de gente como nosotros de calor.
Good morning, fucking dumbasses that are stealing money from the people like me.
Ustedes roban a gente que quieren trabajar, que no tienen papeles, pero como un jodido como el pinche Soto y las otras.
You guys steal money from people who want to work, but like that guy, Soto, all their faces that are just laughing.
Entonces, no hay lugar para un pinche mexicano puto para trabajar y ganar las ganas que trabajan por. ¿Qué es su pinche problema, pelón?
So there's no place for some fucking Mexican to be able to work because it's their fucking problem.
Now, the real version of what America sounds like, motherfuckers. Non-housing bond proceeds, while on the record as Special Master, case number 220 CV02291, Doc KES, year filed 2023, you fucking criminals. Where's the fucking money for housing? Where is it, Armenian? Where is it, wetback Soto? Because I want to know. Money don't go on fucking trees, Jew. Jew, you know where the money went? You fucking stole it, Price. You and that fucking wife of yours stole the fucking money, Price. Ms. Richardson
Are you pushing
is a
comment?
conflict of interest, motherfucker, when it comes to housing. So shut the fuck up. You know better than that. You got fucking 12 indictments against you, Price, and why the fuck are you still collecting a check? When these ladies here are telling you they get no fucking pay for working overtime because they're Mexican.
All right,
They're
thank you for your
illegal.
comments. Thank you for your comments. You may be seated. Next.
What do you say? I get 3 minutes, don't I? 2 minutes plus one non-agenda comment. I get 1 minute.
Your time is up, sir.
What the fuck?
And you're off topic. Thank you.
How much time did you give me, sir?
Next up, please.
Excuse me, I have a question. How much time did you give me?
I gave you enough time. Would you please have a seat?
Nigger.
Next, please. Yeah, that's going on for expulsion.
Speaking on item number 4 and 7.
Just a minute, ma'am. Let me just read this message. Yeah. Okay, a second one, good, okay. Speaking, you were previously warned, but using the in word or its variations, which is in violation of Rule 7, your continued use of the word will actually disrupt this meeting, and I will have, if that's up to me again, I'm going to warn you not to use the word again in violation of Council Rule 7. Is that clear? All right, next speaker, you may proceed, please.
Speaking on item 4 and 7. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jackie Romero here with the California Restaurant Association. Respectfully urge you to oppose the proposed recommendations for an ordinance banning cashless business in the city. Many restaurants shifted to cashless operations at the direct recommendation of county public health during the pandemic. To reduce contact and reopen safely, operators invested significant money in new point-of-sale systems to follow that guidance and meet changing customer expectations. These recommendations would now reverse those investments and contradict previous public health direction. Public safety is also a major concern. Restaurant burglaries involving window smashes are up 103% since 2019. Many operators are losing insurance coverage, seeing premiums skyrocket, and hiring private security. Going cashless has been one of the few tools available to reduce robberies and protect employees. Requiring all restaurants to carry cash would put workers and customers at greater risk. The proposed exemptions for food trucks and street vendors also create an uneven playing field. If safety concerns justify exempting them, those same concerns apply to brick and mortar restaurants facing daily break-ins. We share the goal of supporting unbanked residents, but most assistance is already provided through debit cards, and reloadable cards are widely available. Better solutions include expanding financial literacy and banking access, not forcing every business to handle cash. Please reject these recommendations for an ordinance and work with us for more effective alternatives. Thank you. On item number 7, I'm here to urge you respectfully to oppose the proposed changes to local labor enforcement. These measures are being framed as worker protections, but they are unbalanced, assumed widespread misconduct, and unfairly target restaurants. The data being used counts investigations across industries without accounting for differences in workforce size. Any policy moving forward should rely on data of adjudicated cases, not unproven allegations. The proposal grants the Office of Wage Standards new enforcement powers that duplicate state and county authority, creating confusion and inconsistent oversight for small businesses. Shifting from a complaint-based system to random inspections while explicitly labeling restaurants as high risk opens the door to surprise audits and unfair targeting of compliant operators. The restaurant community fully supports fair labor standards. We all depend on creating safe, welcoming workspaces for our teams, but these proposals are overreaching. The city should focus on state-level enforcement of proven bad actors and reject this package. Thank you.
Hello, Jacqueline Iniguez speaking on general public comment and item 7. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jacqueline Iniguez, Public Policy Manager for the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. I'll be speaking on item 7. The Chamber has significant concerns with several of the proposed amendments in the CLA's report on enforcement of workplace violations, which could cause substantial harm to employers citywide, and was drafted without any meaningful stakeholder input. Handling enforcement influence to outside advocacy groups would jeopardize work privacy and confidentiality, potentially exposing sensitive personal data. The proposed $3 million in new spending over 9 months could expand enforcement powers already managed by state and county agencies, would duplicate programs that are unnecessary given the city's current budget constraints. The report's proposed 3-tier system targets the restaurant and retail industries for fast-tracked investigations, which is unfair given the challenges these businesses already face from theft and public safety concerns. The Chamber respectfully requests that additional small business and employer input is provided before moving forward. Thank you for your time and consideration.
I will call a few more names. Carrie Harper Howie, Manuel Villanueva, Oscar Gonzalez, Yvonne Medrano.
I'd like to speak to, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to speak to items 5, item 7, and general comment. So is that 3 minutes?
Yes.
So good afternoon. My name is Carrie Harper Howie. I am a McDonald's franchisee and also a board member of the California Alliance of Family-Owned Businesses. I would like to start by saying the California Alliance of Family-Owned Businesses strongly opposes the OWS, the CLA's report on OWS for a variety of different reasons. But I want to start by saying employers care about their employees. I certainly do, and I treat my employees with respect, with care and kindness at all times, and I expect my management team to do the same. We are consistently, we have systems in place, and we continue to expand our systems that ensure that the exact type of violations that are being, that are referred to in the report do not happen. But of course, nothing is perfect. And so there are mistakes. And when there are, we have systems in place to report concerns safely and certainly separate from any sort of reporting to ICE. And the notion that employers, I am sure there are people out there that would consider reporting an employee to ICE. That is certainly nothing that anyone like myself and many other respectable employers that are throughout this city that will be impacted by this report. We would never do something like that. And we certainly do everything in our power, in fact, to protect our employees, and the privacy issues that are specifically raised by this report should be a primary concern for our employees who are scared to leave their homes, who are scared to come to work. So imagine if some third party, not even at least the city government, but some third party is able to get your private information to contact you, people will be terrified. So I am certainly asking that the collaboration with community organizations or advocacy organizations sounds admirable, but there are certainly unintended consequences that will come as a result of such exposure of our employees to these entities. And not that they necessarily wish them bad, but they may not know the difference. And that is what is so scary for our employees. There are many opportunities to enforce, not just through the DLSC, but I'm sure many of you are aware of the plaintiff's bar that is very enthusiastically willing to support employees that find their claims or find that they are being mistreated in the area of wage and hour law. And the process is not fast, but it does work. And it is there for a reason. So we would ask that you use those sort of resources or rely upon them because they have continued to work. Lastly, I'll say this report was prepared without any employer feedback. So at a minimum, even if you just create an opportunity, may I finish my sentence?
Yes.
If you would just create an opportunity for employers to have a say in how this will be implemented, we would be very grateful to have our voices heard as well, because they were not in the creation of this report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Oscar González. Estoy a favor del item 7.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Oscar Gonzalez. I'm in favor of item 7.
Llevo 25 años trabajando en la industria del car wash. Soy miembro líder del Centro de Trabajadores Clean Car Wash Worker Center.
Yes, I've been working in the car wash industry for 25 years, and I am the leader of the Clean Car Wash Center.
Mi experiencia en la industria del car wash ha sido robo de salario mínimo, robo de overtime, robo de 10 minutos de break. Trabajamos bajo alta presión y hostigamiento.
Yes, in my experience working, I have experienced wage theft. I have experienced not being able to take my 10-minute break. I have worked under high-pressure circumstances, and I have not also been paid for my overtime.
También no nos pagan los días de enfermedad. Cuando yo me enfermé de COVID, estuve 2 semanas fuera del trabajo, pero nunca se me pagaron mis días de enfermedad.
They don't even pay our sick days either. When I had COVID, I had to take 2 weeks off work, and I did not receive any pay for that.
Los dueños y los managers nos presionan para que ellos puedan obtener más ganancias en su negocio. Nos presionan y quieren que trabajemos el doble y más rápido.
And the owners and the managers of the car washes, they pressure us so that we can work, and so that we have to work double, twice as hard just so that they can profit.
Pero nuestro pago no es doble. Actualmente el robo del salario es lo único que incrementa.
But be it then that our pay does not double, given our doubling of our efforts. In fact, the only thing that rises is wage theft.
Nosotros trabajamos muy duro para sacar el trabajo adelante, pero ellos no reconocen esto, solamente se preocupan por sus ganancias.
We work so hard to carry our work out, but they don't really care about this. All they care about is their profits.
Necesitamos que la ciudad de Los Ángeles...
Speaker, your time has expired. Next speaker, please.
Señor, se le acabó su tiempo.
Thank you.
Siguiente comentarista, por favor.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Manuel Villanueva, and I am the program coordinator with the LA Worker Center Network. I'm here as an ally and an advocate for low-wage workers across Los Angeles, workers who keep the economy running, but often are denied from basic dignity, of fair pay, and safe working conditions. I've seen firsthand that wage theft is not a technical issue, it's a survival issue. When a worker loses a paycheck, it means rent goes unpaid, food is skipped, and stability disappears. The Office of Wage Standards plays a critical role on restoring not only wages, but trust in our systems. What makes this office especially effective is the collaboration with community-based organizations. These partnerships reach workers where government alone cannot, across languages, cultures, neighborhoods, building trust and making enforcement real and accessible. But this cannot be sustained without proper investment. So today we urge you to support the CLA recommendations and approve additional funding for the Office of Wage Standards to strengthen the enforcement, deepen the community partnerships, and ensure that workers in Los Angeles are protected, respected, and paid the money that they're owed. May I finish my sentence?
Yes.
Investing in wage standards is an investment in justice, public trust, and fair economy for all.
Thank you.
I'll call a few more names. Tia Coons, Alicia Rivers, Bernie Azaula.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tia Kuntz. I'm the policy director at the UCLA Labor Center, which is the academic institute that's put out most of the data related to wage theft in Los Angeles. And listen, I'll cut it short. This isn't an expansion in the law. It's not an expansion in what employers are already obligated to do. It's a little disappointing to see the, sky is falling, chicken little arguments, because the truth is there's already an obligation to pay min wage plus overtime plus meal and rest. This is about enforcement and implementation of those laws as they stand. I would say that the recommendations the CLA makes are easier and more effective for enforcement in our city. Enforcement has never been more important than it is right at this moment. There's a reason ICE raids began here. As we know, it's because LA runs on low-wage immigrant labor. And we should be proud and lift up our low-wage immigrant community rather than causing folks to experience time and time and time again 5-year delays from the time they file a claim to the time they actually get a hearing, much less collect on that back wages. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm speaking on item 7 in general comments. My name is Alicia Rivers, and I am here on behalf of the LA County Business Federation. We are representing employers across retail, restaurants, healthcare, hospitality, construction, real estate, and any other industry you can imagine. Together, we must voice our strong opposition to the recommendations in the Chief Legislative Analyst Report on workplace violation enforcement. If adopted, these recommendations would impose real and lasting harm on every employer in this city, from major industries to thousands of small and minority-owned businesses that are already still struggling just to stay open. And it's important to note that this report was developed without any consultation with the business community. That exclusion has led to proposals that are unfair, discriminatory, and disconnected from the day-to-day realities that both employers and workers face. Let me be clear, employers are firmly committed to protecting workers' rights. Safe, fair workplaces are the backbone of strong businesses and strong communities. But these proposals do not improve worker protections. Instead, they would outsource enforcement to third-party advocacy organizations, granting them sweeping authority based on accusations, not facts, while stripping away due process, jeopardizing employee privacy, and eliminating impartiality. The proposed co-enforcement model raises serious concerns. It could expose sensitive employee data, including immigration status, at a time when fear around enforcement is already high. Even the CLA report admits the government cannot legally share these records with external groups, yet it offers no plan to prevent these violations from occurring. The report would also erode due process by relying on allegations instead of proven violations, targeting industries as high risk without evidence and encouraging costly enforcement sweeps. Finally, these proposals duplicate work already performed by the state and county agency. The price tag, up to $30 million over 10 years, comes at a time when the city is facing deficits and cutting essential services. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Bernie Asaula, member of PWC, Filipino Worker Center. I am also a victim of wage theft. As a caregiver, I was paid $300 per day, which is equivalent of $12.50 per hour. It is below minimum wage, without meals allowance, no assured rest breaks, no overtime pay. That's why we strongly support adoption and funding the Chief Legislative Analyst, and we strongly support LA City Office of Wage Standard. Councilman, please give us the hope to bring back our dignity as a LA caregiver. Thank you.
I will call a few more names. Fernando, Jacqueline Bate, Michaela Gibson, Nick Burrow.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Fernando. I'm with PWC NCC-led drive. We support in adopting the funding of Chief Legislative Analysis recommendation. CLA recommends the following amendment of the Los Angeles Municipal Code. Prioritize worker earning to two-thirds or less than a medium household income. Grant the OWS the authority to enforce and investigate the violation of overtime, meal break, rest break, and late pay violations. Grant Director of Bureau of Contract Administration, authority to issue administrative subpoena. LA recommend the following charges of to WS: development of workplace complaint prioritization system, establishing the public repository to completed investigation and penalties, introduce the target enforcement program and investigate location or industries with a high rate workplace violations, strengthening information sharing with law enforcement community with the community organization, coordinating and corresponds co- enforcement training and collaboration with LA County and an agency to resort the current staffing of WS hiring, retention strategies and funding source needed to implement this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to general public comment and item 7. My name is Michaela Gibson, and I'm here on behalf of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, or VICA. The Workplace Violations Report proposes major changes to the city enforcement, yet the business community was never included in the discussion. The proposal expands OWS authority to overtime, meal and rest breaks, late pay, and gratuities, and adds new subpoena powers for the Bureau of Contract Administration. It also brings outside organizations into enforcement and information sharing, raising clear questions about confidentiality and how employee data would be protected. The report outlines nearly $3 million in new city spending over 9 months and long-term costs about $30 million, even though these enforcement functions already exist at the state and county levels. VICA urges the city to pause this proposal and engage employers directly before moving forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Burrow. I'm here on behalf of the California Grocers Association, speaking on item 5. On behalf of CGA, we look forward to working with the city on digital discount access. As you look to similar laws in other jurisdictions, we'd like to highlight San Diego as an excellent example of increasing access for non-digital consumers, while also respecting consumers' choice to have a relationship with their grocer. As San Diego recognized during their development process, over-regulating in this space results in discounts being too difficult to offer at any level and leads to elimination of discounts for all consumers. Most coupons are provided to incentivize consumers to experience new or different products, and it's in everyone's best interest to continue these opportunities for all consumers who wish to seek them out. We request that you work in partnership with the Grocer Association and industry and direct city staff to consult directly with grocers and CGA to help develop policy options. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Any other comments, please? Any other comments? If you've not spoken, please approach the podium.
I know she will never call my name. I am aware of that. So yes, sir. Let's start with 2 items and then followed by 1 minute general. Let's start with item number 3. Item number 3 is a property-based business improvement, specifically in the Chinatown area. The concern is like the people in Chinatown area, it's similar to the racist lady who's calling the names today. Why? Because we are not Latino. We don't have a superior black skin color. We don't have a super beautiful white color like the name calling lady today. She will never call certain names. So whenever we have a concern about our business improvement, we never made it on the news. Right? Because if you're a black business owner, your store get looted. Tomorrow, LA Times, NBC, MSNBC, or KTLA, everybody goes to you, and then you got amazing coverage, and then the city is obligated to help you because you are black. But in the city, in the Chinatown district, whenever our store get looted, get rioted, do whatever, we call our council district member Hernandez, we call our Chinatown district, I think is Kevin De Leon. Again, we don't have much response because we have an inferior skin color. Nobody cares. Now let's move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is about a cashless retail ban. Item number 4, this is pretty easy. Why? It's because the employer want everything by cash, so that means nobody wants to pay their what I call a sales tax. They don't have to report their income tax, so everybody just pay under the table and then nothing on the record. Item number 3 is about the minimum wage. Yes, the other day that I went to work, my employer paying me $5 per hour. I'm really thankful of my minimum wage of $5 per hour. Why? Because when I work in Africa, my Africa employer pay me 25 cents per hour. When I work in North Korea, my North Korea pay me 10 cents per hour. So I'm really thankful for my $5 per hour job. And then, but I don't understand why so many workers they're complaining while getting their $20 minimum wage. But for me, sometimes I do those on-call car wash services for all of our LAPD officers. So whenever Officer Sabra call me, he needs a car wash, I wash a car wash, and then he pay me $10 per hour. I say thank you very much for your service, Officer Sabra. So we are very thankful for our $10 per hour job, $5 per hour job, because compared to what I work in a communist country, which is they only pay me $2 per hour, I will say thank God, thank Jesus Christ, thank America, thank LAPD officer, thank our council member, everybody, thank you. So we are very thankful for our $5 per hour job. Be thankful. I'm not here to complain. I'm not come here to give you a mouthful. I'm only here to tell you thank you, how appreciate I am to this great, amazing city. I'm really thankful. I'm not homeless. I'm thankful for my $10 car wash job, and I'm going to continue to support you, council member. I'm going to continue to support everyone, but I just want to make sure your woman call every single name next time. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments before we move forward? Okay, we're going to close the public comment at this time. I'm sorry. Item 2 on consent regarding excess housing bond proceeds from the North Hollywood project area. We're going to take item 3 regarding the Chinatown bid. Item 5 regarding grocery transparency laws. And item 8 regarding ghost kitchens. Without objections, we will hear those items. We will take those items on consent. Mr. Clerk.
And just to clarify for item number 3, we have 2 reports. The committee will be adopting the corrected report dated 8/12/2025. Councilmember Price.
Aye.
Councilmember Soto Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Jurado.
Yes.
Councilmember Nazarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
5 ayes. These items are approved.
Okay, we're going to take up item 6 now so that Member Nazarian can attend his committee meeting. Let's take item 6, and Mr. Nazarian will let you lead the comments on that. You want to call item 6? No, we're going to read the item. He's got an amendment.
Motion relative to exploring opportunities to assist vertical content creators by establishing a grant program that provides upfront funding to incentivize local production and related matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a friendly amendment to make, which reads, I further move to direct the EWDD and CLA to report back on recommending a feasible production budget threshold to impose employer-sponsored portable healthcare labor standards that will not be detrimental to the budget of the project. And we've also
Has that been
spoken.
circulated?
If I can get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on this amendment? Okay, seeing none, let's call the roll on the item.
Councilmember Price.
Aye.
Councilmember Soto Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Jurado.
Yes.
Councilmember Nazarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
5 ayes. This item is approved as amended.
Okay, thank you, members.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item 4.
Chief Legislative Analyst report relative to a proposed framework for cashless retail ban and related matters.
Okay,
Hello, council
CLA,
members.
floor is yours. Thank you, sir.
Hello, council members. I'm Alex Whitehead with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. My office released a report summarizing cashless retail prohibitions and best practices in other jurisdictions and identifying policy recommendations for the implementation of a similar policy in Los Angeles. Our office's report provides an analysis of enacted and proposed legislation related to cashless retail bans in other jurisdictions. It also provides a framework for a city ban on cashless retail practices that considers legislative requirements, exceptions, and enforcement measures. A cashless retail ban would be designed to provide all residents with an equitable marketplace, and a program would represent a commitment by the city to address consumer affairs. However, the city must balance the needs of consumers with those of the businesses that will also be affected by such a policy. For requirements, a cashless retail ban would place new requirements on businesses. Analyzed legislation provided 3 general requirement types, but the manner in which these requirements are designed varies between jurisdictions. The basic requirement types are the required acceptance of cash, the prohibition of discrimination against cash-paying customers, and prohibited posting of cashless signage. It's recommended that the council consider implementing all 3 requirement options identified. For prohibited discrimination against cash-paying customers, it is suggested that the ordinance stipulate that it is unlawful for vendors to charge cash-paying customers a higher price, but may charge a lower price to such customers. A survey of legislation found that cashless retail bans include exceptions intended to provide for situations in which cash payment is not feasible. Our report recommends the following list of exceptions for inclusion in the city's cashless retail ban, with additional detail on each exception provided in the CLA report and available for discussion upon request. These exceptions are bill denominations over $50, transactions with a total cost of over $1,000, telephone, mail, or internet transactions, security deposits, transactions at parking lots and parking garages, sporting and entertainment venues, businesses operating from a vehicle or mobile space, businesses that have a cash conversion device on hand, and temporary instances in which the retailer is unable to accept cash. It's recommended that enforcement of any proposed ban be handled through penalties imposed by a government department. Representatives from SHRED have indicated that enforcement of such a program would fit within the mission and jurisdiction of their department and the Commission on Civil Rights. The department has an operation in place for enforcement measures, a team of inspectors, and a history of enforcement subsequent to the enactment of the Civil and Human Rights Ordinance in 2019. Therefore, it's recommended that a cashless retail ban program be assigned to the Commission on Civil Rights and SHRED. Additionally, EWDD serves as the city department most directly interfaced with the small business community, and it's therefore recommended that enforcement of a cashless retail ban be provided in conjunction with SHRED and Economic and Workforce Development Department. For next steps, it's recommended that the council adopt the framework for a cashless retail ban as proposed and instruct EWDD, with the assistance of my office and SHRED, to seek comment from the business community and other stakeholders, reporting back in 45 days in order to garner feedback that may influence amendments to the proposal. Additionally, it's recommended that EWDD and SHRED, in coordination with the city attorney and my office, be instructed to develop an enforcement and fine structure, reporting back in 45 days. After receiving feedback, council will determine how to move forward with a cashless retail ban program, and it's recommended that if council implements such a law, that an educational campaign be developed in order to inform the public and small businesses of the new legislative requirements. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. You know, this cashless retail has been it's on the move, and certainly has gotten a lot of interest in jurisdictions around the country. Talk a little bit about the review you performed in terms of cashless jurisdictions around the country and how those programs have been rolling out.
So Massachusetts was the first to institute a retail ban cashless retail ban all the way back in 1978. They wanted to make sure that anybody could use cash for purchases. In the subsequent 40 years, there was no other action on this until 2019. And in 2019, or since 2019, 8 states, actually now 9 states, as there was just an update a few days ago, and 6 cities have instituted their own cashless bans, starting with San Francisco. Just the other day, let me find the information here. On November 24th, the state of New York also approved a ban, very similar in terms of requirements and exceptions, except their exceptions include bills over $20. And you can't charge a higher price for cash transactions. Penalty structure is $1,000 for the first citation and $1,500 for each subsequent citation. So it's to say there's been a lot of rollout in the last 6 years and is still happening to this day.
You recommended SHRED be the agency designated to kind of monitor that. Talk a little bit about their experience, about why they were recommended.
So they have enforcement experience in this department, so we believe that they would be able to best serve the city without having to set up any sort of additional program.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Councilwoman Rowe.
Thank you. Yeah, I just am curious, what do you mean by, SHRED having enforcement, so their investigators could also expand their scope of work to include this, or what makes them poised? Like, what are you talking about when you say they have experience for it?
Well, SHRED does have a team of inspectors and does take place with enforcement measures. I don't have the specifics on that, so SHRED might need to comment if they are available. But they do provide enforcement for civil rights issues, and they do have these inspectors, so it seems like it would sort of fit within their business mission, at least on the consumer side of this. But then EWD also being a part of this on the small business side to make sure that it's coordinated in tandem.
I just don't, I'm like struggling to understand, because to me, this seems like the real outcome is going to be like a fine, and that's like administrative. You know, someone's going to make a claim, send a video saying, I tried to pay cash, this business didn't let me, and then that's just going to be that. And I don't know how comprehensive and technical in terms of like civil rights law we want to utilize our civil rights department's big brains for something that I think is an easier analysis to say, they didn't let me use cash. So to me, it doesn't seem like a prudent use of resources and brain power for something that doesn't require that much analysis. My second comment is for EWDD being a department that maybe manages small businesses, but is to provide them with support, but not necessarily reprimand them, which this cashless ban would reprimand them. And so trying to figure out who could be the one that actually enforces it, when it seems to me it's more of an administrative task that will be like a fine instead of like a true investigation. So that's just where I'm coming from with it, because, you know, we have not a lot of resources, and we want to use our talent to the things that they're trained for. And if this is just a quick analysis of you didn't pay for it in cash and administrative, is there any other department? Because it just feels like a self-certification kind of thing. Like you just figure it out that they didn't do that. And if there's another department like Office of Finance or even the city clerk that could do this, because I don't think that investigation requires a lot more in-depth analysis as maybe like a constitutional discrimination claim would require. So do you have anything to say about that?
I'd ask John Wickham if you had any suggestions on that.
So we could certainly talk to other departments that might be relevant. It does seem that if one of the components of failure to comply with this is a discrimination component to it, that's where the SHRED connection does come into it, because it does become a civil rights component because of the discrimination.
But then doesn't that go to the city attorney?
Well, that's the thing, is the SHRED does have the inspection and evaluation component within their program already for that. And so that's where we see that connection.
Are they not preempted by the state?
We would have to look into that. The recommendation here,
because I think the state discrimination laws on public accommodations, that would be it. But also economic discrimination is very, very hard to prove anyways. And so spending a lot of attorney billable hours from our city resources to discover something that's too ambiguous, when we could just stay in a strict liability standard of like, we either have evidence they didn't accept cash or they didn't. So I'm just wondering,
Well, so that's why our instruction is for the city attorney, EWDD, and CLA, and SHRED to look at how we would do the enforcement component to this. So we know that if you're going to do this, you would want an enforcement element to the program. Somebody would need to do the enforcement element. There would need to be some kind of a structure. And so I think what you're helping us identify are ways and questions and issues that we can investigate in putting that together to bring back to you for consideration.
Yeah, I just think it should be way simpler than probably what maybe you're thinking about, and it'll rise to a certain situation, but it's almost, I mean, that's just what I think the analysis should be, like simpler, like you either did it or you didn't. And the second thing is, because then it becomes like, how much money and staff time are we allocating for something that doesn't happen a lot of the time? And are we trying to recruit new expertise to this very niche issue that's taking away from our other goals that we're trying to do? So that's just my comment on it. And I hope that when you come back with the proposed framework, that you just keep the simplicity in mind and find the right department that can administer it, that is also cost efficient in terms of like money, but also like our time and resources, right? Just because, you know, we want the best person to do it, who will spend the least amount of time, but do the right thing and not, I just fear that I don't want our civil rights attorneys spinning our wheels on something that's not going to result in anything fruitful, you know?
Thank you, Councilman. I think some great comments and some guidance to staff as they move forward on this. Any other comments?
Yes, thank you.
Councilwoman, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Price. Thank you all for the report and for being here. Few questions for you. So the framework creates exemptions for some businesses and not others. So for example, sporting and entertainment venues are exempted due to crime risk. For food trucks and street vendors, they're exempted because they may become targets for theft. And parking garages get exempted due to minimal security enforcement. I personally know many small restaurants and other businesses that have actually also gone cashless because of theft and safety concerns. And I think there is also a very valid point to be made, and I heard it raised during public comment today, that just a few short years ago, we told businesses that they should do this because it was safer and healthier to do that. And a lot of them made those investments. So I guess I'm just curious, like, what's the explanation here? Why we are creating exemptions for some businesses because of theft and safety concerns, but not others who experience similar challenges? What's the rationale for the disparate treatment?
I suppose I would say that these were the best practices we had seen in other jurisdictions, and finding that fine line of where we cut that off became difficult, because if it goes to restaurants, then where sort of does it end? My example with this program was always, I'm hot on the street right now and I need a bottle of water. You know, so if we exempted, you know, one-stop convenience shops, which are targets for crime, then suddenly that also isn't doable. And so it became finding that fine line of where we would allow cashless retail and where we would make it, ban it from being the only option.
Okay. Would the sporting venue exemption include places like Dodger Stadium and, I don't know, Crypto Arena?
Yes, it would, and concert venues.
I mean, I'm just curious, why are we exempting billion-dollar corporations that might actually be able to afford to comply with this and putting burdens on other small businesses that we already know just from looking around are barely holding on by a thread? Why are we discriminating against some businesses and not others with this approach? What's the rationale for that? I get other cities have chosen to do that, but why would we do that?
I believe the issue with entertainment and large venues like that is just how much business is being done all at once. You know, if you've ever waited in line for one of those, there are hundreds of people at some point. And so making it cashless would have been more of a risk in terms of their business. We're definitely open to suggestions on the policy and the specifics, though. This was, again, based on best practices in other cities that we'd seen. This was a common exception.
Are there other cities that have adopted models that really kind of focus more on like essentials, right? So for example, pharmacies and grocery stores.
I'd have to double check the attached to the report was an attachment that outlined each of these exceptions. I'd have to double check within each of these jurisdictions. I'd have to double check which of those may better fit what you're suggesting.
Okay.
Councilman, you raised some good points. I think there will be some amendments made to try to fine tune what's being presented here.
Okay.
Along the lines that you suggested.
Okay, good. Well, let's flesh that out.
But yeah, I think we want to get it fleshed out further with the EWDD, SHRED, the city attorney, and businesses, local businesses, to have some more input into this process. And I think we need to ensure that.
Well, and thank you for that, Mr. Chair, because my next question for you was, can you give me a list of the businesses that you've consulted with already about this?
I know EWDD consulted with the Small Business Commission. Our office did not consult with the small businesses.
I feel like, I don't know, records of those interviews or a list of, I just, aside from the commission, did any actual businesses and operators, and we heard from a handful of people here today that have some thoughts about this. And if I've ever been consistent about anything, it is that I think the stakeholders and the people to be impacted by our policies need to have a seat at the table in developing them. So it seems like if there was any, it's been pretty limited. Is that right?
Well, it would have been performed through EWDD, so we can ask them for a list.
Okay.
And maybe we'll have them at the table next time so that we can get it from them directly.
All right. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you if you had something to say there. Okay, just one more question, Mr. Chair. So on, the investigations and enforcement process here, I heard Councilmember Jarado's comments that, these really should be simple. Maybe it shouldn't require so much brain power as we think it might. But if you're going to be investigating and pursuing any kind of charges against any individual or business of any size or means, it just seems to me that there is actually substantive work that we would be obligated to do. Talk to witnesses, review records and material, analyze the potentially applicable exemptions, analyze facts, and then make findings based on whatever the applicable evidentiary standard is going to be to impose any kind of sanction or fine. What is the evidentiary standard we're going to use? Do we know yet? Has there been any?
Yeah, that's part of the. That would be part of the instruction that we have here to evaluate that and define that for you.
Okay. So, I mean, I would think at a very minimum, right? The evidentiary standards, conversations around whether that will result in a written report, whether there is any opportunity for cure and correction, whether there is any ability to appeal or seek further review of a finding. It just seems to me that those are some very basic and actually kind of basic but complex too. And I don't want to undermine the size of the lift that may actually be required if this was to be done and be done fairly. But I guess, Mr. Chair, as the report shares, I mean, there are legitimate public safety reasons that businesses across the spectrum have moved away from cash. And I think that is something that we should consider in drafting the policy. And I think there is probably a balance here that makes sense, focusing on essentials and places where unbanked or underbanked households still have access to critical goods and services. But, you know, I've also mentioned already that I have concerns about exempting organizations like the Dodgers and putting these types of burdens on smaller businesses and restaurants and retailers, especially in light of some of the other onerous obligations that we've already put on them in the last few years. I also really think that before we adopt any framework, we should probably go elicit the input from all of the relevant stakeholders. And, you know, whoever's been consulted here so far is great, but it just doesn't seem adequate to me. So I would like to propose, and I suspect there are probably some other amendments coming too, but perhaps keeping recommendation number 1 in committee and moving forward with recommendation 2 so that we can go out and get the business feedback that we need before we even adopt the framework. It just feels to me that we are putting the cart before the horse. So that's what I would like to propose. Thank you.
Repeat that again, please.
Sure. My recommendation, my request or motion or whatever this is procedurally would be that we hold recommendation 1. Let's keep that here in committee, but move forward with recommendation 2 so that we can go out there and do that engagement with our business community and elicit their input, and then create a framework that makes sense based on a complete, more well-rounded record of stakeholder engagement and feedback.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Sean Wickham with CLA. With regard to item 3, would you like that work to continue as well, which is developing the administrative framework for the enforcement, et cetera?
I don't know, to me, actually, it kind of seems like it goes hand in hand with the framework itself. So I think creating the framework and the enforcement structure should all be part of the same conversation.
Part of the same discussion, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm going to put a holding 1, and then we can move 2 and 3.
So just for education, just for clarification, holding 1 and 3, and
Holding
then
1.
moving, okay.
And improve 2 and 3, yeah.
No, you're saying hold 1 and 3 and move forward 2.
Yeah. Okay, I second that.
Wait, I'm sorry. What's the wish of the body?
Going to hold 1 in committee. 3, let's hold in committee because 3 is very intricately related to 1. And let's move 2, which is go out and get the community engagement done and solicit the feedback, bring that back, and then let's work on items 1 and 3 and incorporate all of the feedback that we get into recommendations 1 and 3 would be my suggestion. Thank you for catching that. I overlooked that recommendation.
Right, yes, absolutely. Yes, so the instruction that we have in this motion, and that's why the public comment was limited, was to provide a legislative review and show the work that had been done in other jurisdictions. And so we were following the instruction that we have for you. So moving forward with item 2, we recognize that full engagement with the community would be important in developing this. The framework I think that we might show when we do go out to the public would show this kind of structure of the issues that are being represented in other jurisdictions as a way to start and frame a conversation. I understand not adopting a framework presently as your recommendation is suggesting, but just as context for, we have to have some kind of a way to have a conversation with people.
I know.
And this report gives us the opportunity for that.
I get it. And you did what you were instructed to do, which was look at what other cities are doing. And that's great. I assume this is sort of a compilation of best of ideas, but I'm not totally convinced that this is what we need, if we need anything.
Exactly.
In Los Angeles. And so I just think it just makes sense if we were getting the feedback about what the framework looks like from the business community, identifying where needs are that might warrant exemptions, rather than going out and, sounds like there may be some other amendments pending anyway on sporting and concert venues, rather than creating things that ultimately we don't need or want at the end of the day
Yes.
anyway. That's all.
Absolutely, and this will help us understand how the council wants to move forward on this.
Okay, Mr. Soto Martinez.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you so much for this report. I'm really enjoying the conversation. Someone who worked in the restaurant industry for 7 years and seen all kinds of systems, I've seen sort of the industry change over time. I think like I'm in favor of this in what it's trying to do, because I think about my parents. They don't have credit cards, right? And so many of the businesses are now going cashless, and they're not able to, purchase goods and services. And I recognize, I acknowledge the comments from Ms. Park that maybe it's industry specific. Maybe that's where the issue's at. And at the same time, there's a lot of businesses that are cash only. Because they don't want to pay the credit card the fees, 5% or whatever the credit cards charge. And the consumer, there's a consumer's aspect too, right? It's like us having the choice to see where businesses we go to. So I agree with Ms. Hutt is trying to do with this motion. I actually want to focus a little bit on enforcement. You say, and the report says, through civil action or through penalties imposed by a government department. Looking at other laws, how do they remedy if they find a violation? What do they do in that situation?
So there's usually a penalty structure. That's typically the way this is handled through government action.
And can you give me an example?
For example, I was just looking at this. This is in state of Delaware. The penalties are: the first offense would be $1,000, second offense is $1,500, and any further offenses are $2,500.
And these offenses are, and it says civil action. So that's just, I'm not a lawyer here, but that's someone suing the business on their own, correct?
That would be the other option. We recommended government enforcement.
You recommend government enforcement, okay. And are there jurisdictions where the employer has the opportunity to cure the violation without having there be penalties?
I guess we'd have to come back to you with further analysis of that.
Okay. I actually want to look into that, because I think we should always give folks an opportunity to fix things before we start dinging them over the head with fines and penalties. And I say that because I work very closely with the business community in my district. I know that may be a surprise, but I think I do. And one of the stories I've heard quite a bit is them getting sued for ADA violations. And these are mom and pops that end up paying $5,000, $10,000, and that's a big hit. And what they've said to me is, if we're out of compliance, give us an opportunity to fix it, instead of immediately being caught up in litigious battle with folks that their entire, and it seems like there's an entire world of folks that just go out there to sue folks and make money. I see people nodding their heads. So I don't like that. I think that there has to be a framework where we give people an opportunity to fix it before we go to the fines and civil litigation or any of that. We give people an opportunity to do the right thing. So I don't know. So Ms. Park, that is sort of related to instruction number 3, which you want to hold back, but I do want to look at an alternatives, a report back on alternatives for remedying that do not include a fine and fee. So maybe we can include it with number 2. But I really want to look into that for our small businesses.
So,
Councilmember, just because I agree with you, I think definitely, looking at some opportunities to give notice and cure violations and things like that makes sense. And I 100% agree with you that it does need to be considered. It just seems like that goes hand in hand with the development of the framework and the enforcement.
So is there a way to put that into number 2?
Let's add that as something that should be evaluated.
So that can move forward. We can get some recommendations.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I guess that's with the city attorney, or who would that be with? CLA?
Yes, we would absolutely work with
the second
city attorney.
recommendation, we want to include some language in there about examining the enforcement models.
Yeah, and the ability to cure, or examples where they
prior to
cure before the going with penalties and fines and things like that.
Yes, I think Councilwoman Park also mentioned the ability to appeal and evidentiary standards. And so we can just look at all of those elements of an enforcement component.
I would really appreciate that. It drives me crazy to hear that, some of our businesses are being sued and then have to pay $10,000, and many of them are minority-owned businesses, women business, so that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Let me just see if I can find some language here then for us to agree upon. That we would amend CLA recommendation 2 as follows: to instruct the EWD with the assistance of SHRED and CLA to seek comment from the small business community, such as the Small Business Commission, LA Chamber, LA BizFed, California Restaurant Association, and other interested organizations on the proposed framework and potential enforcement models. Yeah, and report back to council in 60 days. Make that 60 days with a summary of its findings.
Do we have a second?
There's a second? Any discussion? Let's call the roll. In anticipation? Would you call the roll?
Councilmember Price.
Aye.
Councilmember Soto Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Hurtado.
Yes, again. Thank you.
Councilmember Nazarian. Absent. Councilmember Park.
As amended, yes.
As amended. This item passes as amended.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. A lot of work done, but a lot of still more work to do. All right, let's move on. Item 7.
Chief Legislative Analyst Report relative to requesting the city attorney to draft amendments to the Office of Wage Standards Ordinance, Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 188.00, and changes to enforcement process utilized by the city in identifying, investigating, and penalizing wage theft and other related workplace violations and related matters.
Okay, as the CLA comes before us, I want to again thank everyone for your comments, those who were in favor of this ordinance, those who oppose it, and to those who just aren't sure yet. We appreciate the comments, the questions, and your participation in this process. Mr. CLA, the floor is yours.
Members, good afternoon. I'll keep my comments relatively brief. The report before you responds to an adopted council report that instructed our office to report with recommendations that would increase the authority and the capability of the Office of Wage Standards to address noncompliance with labor laws in the city. In responding to that instruction, our office recommends the following, among other things. To grant the Director of the Bureau of Contract Administration investigative subpoena authority, grant the Office of Wage Standards the authority to enforce additional workplace violations, overtime, meal break, and so on. Create an online database of completed investigations that resulted in violations. Expand information sharing arrangements with community-based organizations, and to identify funds for new positions to assist with the implementation of the recommendations. With that, I am ready to for your questions.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that we should create a public online repository of completed investigations. Would that be specific for investigations that resulted in a violation or an investigation or questions, or how do you envision that being structured? Should it include all complaints, just some complaints?
So this is something that council, it is a policy call for council, but the recommendation in the report would be to post investigations that resulted in penalties. How serious a penalty, how many workers ultimately were involved, the type of employer, and so on and so forth. That's something that I think the department and perhaps council should work closely on to think about what should be included in those details. The other thing is that based on the information that's posted publicly, which can be Public Records Acted anyway, that information will be extremely important in deterring future types of activity. That's what the rigorous scholarly research has shown, and that's what's been done in the city of Seattle.
How do we make sure that we're targeting enforcement again based on where these violations are occurring? What would be specifically investigated, I should say? How do we kind of juggle the complaints versus violations versus process moving forward?
So the department already has a pretty large pool of complaints and investigations. OWS does, that is. And what I lay out in the report is that you could take that number of violations or investigations, would some sort of measure of how our enforcement personnel are directing their attention towards these types of issues, and divide that by the total number of workers in those occupations to give us a sense of where previously we've directed our attention, our enforcement attention to. And that would help inform a lot of that proactive enforcement.
One of your recommendations was to grant BCA the authority to issue administrative subpoenas. What's the current process and how would that be different?
So the current process, it would probably be helpful if the OWS would describe the current process in detail, but basically it's a public hearing that happens at the Board of Public Works and allows quite a bit of time in the airing of public facts to occur. In my review of the literature and in other jurisdictions, New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, normally the BCA director has the unilateral authority without asking another board to subpoena documents. Yesterday, in the New York Times, it was national news, Starbucks was penalized almost $40 million by the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection in New York City for violating their Fair Workweek law. I have reached out to New York City about that. I would be stunned if the investigation did not involve subpoenas in some capacity.
And then finally, talk a little bit about this co-enforcement concept, working with community-based organizations. How does that work? How do we create a sense of fairness and balance? What kind of information sharing would be done, and how would we safeguard the individual rights?
So we're already doing this in some capacity. This was something that was recommended to me by the Labor Commissioner for the state of California, Mr. Daniel Yu. How it would be done needs to be very carefully crafted because the government cannot share tons of internal investigative details with external organizations. They can discuss things in kind of a broad manner, but not extremely sensitive business details. So the specifics of those things really need to be ironed out further in careful consultation with our attorneys. But I've been urged both by the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor, the Department of Labor Standards and Enforcement with the state, that involving CBOs to help with these investigations is extremely valuable and yields a lot of good results, both for the city and for businesses that are in compliance with the law.
Any other questions, members? Mr. Soto Martinez.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to thank you, Mr. Price, for, I've mentioned this many times. You've been a leader on many of these issues that, predates my arrival on this council. And as always, it's been wonderful to work with you on these issues and trying to make the city a little bit better. And so I just want to start off by saying that. Los Angeles is the wage theft capital of the United States. On average, low-wage workers, many of them who are here today, lose on average $26.2 million a week, which equates to $1.4 billion a year. And we have to do something. These are folks that are breaking the law, that are many times doing criminal acts, and it's no surprise that they're preying on the most vulnerable people of our community. And so this is, to me, a really big day for a lot of the folks that have been working on this for many, many years. And I want to thank the whole team at OWS, the advocates at the LA Worker Center Network, and of course, Dr. Flatt. Thank you for always your reports. Because we need to ensure that OWS can enforce against employers who have violated the most common types of violations. Not just the city's minimum wage law, which is all they do right now, but all the violations of wage theft. Overtime, meal break penalty, missed meal breaks, missed rest breaks, and others, because we have to protect folks. And so providing OWS with subpoena power will allow for the office to enforce against these employers more quickly and more effectively. And I'm very happy to hear the other cities are doing the same thing. And the relationships with the organizations is going to be very important because many of those folks are trusted by the community. They hear those complaints and working hand in hand with them, I think it's going to provide for much better outcomes. And so regarding the report that was submitted, and I have some questions for OWS, so I don't know if they're here today. But cool. Thank you so much for joining us. So regarding the individual liability, now it is my understanding that under the Labor Code, a plaintiff or enforcement agency can name anyone who has engaged in wage theft, including the owner, in a complaint because it is common practice for employers who have committed violations to just shut down. Therefore, the state allows enforcement agencies like OWS to name the natural person and stop this corporate loophole. Now, my understanding is that in the past, OWS has turned away some cases because a corporation has shuttered after an alleged violation. Can you talk through that approach and how it may be changing?
Good afternoon, Councilmember. I hate to punt on the first question you give me, but I'm going to ask if Danya, our city attorney, can join us here.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Kimberly Fitzpatrick, Office of Wage Standards. I will speak to a couple cases that I'm aware of in the past where we have had instances of a business closing and us not being able to pursue a potential restitution. However, I don't know the details of the case. They were years ago. So unfortunately, I can't go into more detail. What I will say is that we have always considered that as a tool in our toolbox that we will employ when we have a case where that is an appropriate path to pursue. We would rely on the support and guidance of our colleagues at the Office of the City Attorney as well. So I want to give Danya Minassian the opportunity to add anything that I've missed.
Good afternoon, council members. Danya Minassian, Assistant City Attorney for the City Attorney's Office. We've always had section 558.1 of the Labor Code that imputes liability with individual owners, directors, officers, or managing agents of an employer who violate or cause to be violated any provision regarding regulating minimum wages or hours and days of work. There just has to be facts that support it. And so when an investigation has facts that lend to the director, owner, operator being personally involved in the alleged violations, of course, that's a tool in our shed to use.
Okay. And now I don't see this, if it was like, crypto arena, obviously they can't shut down and disappear, but can you give sort of a little bit of insight of what industries that's more likely to happen where there is wage theft violations and then it's just very easy for them to shut down their business and be gone?
I can only speak to our experience, and it has been very limited. So it probably isn't a large enough sample to really draw a generalization from. I can only recall one or two cases where this occurred.
Do you know which industries were?
I don't recall. I'd be happy to get back to you with that information.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then the relationship with the Los Angeles Worker Center Network. Can you talk about the collaborative relationship you have with the worker advocates and how you see strengthening that relationship as a benefit to bringing justice to workers? Anybody can answer that.
So, good afternoon again, Raul Mendoza, Assistant Director. So we've enjoyed a great partnership with the Worker Center Network and their various organizations. And I do want to recognize all of the members that are here because I think we share the same passion with them in doing this work. And so our collaboration with them has really been helpful. There is a couple cases that they've brought our way now that we're working with them on. And it really does open up, and maybe part of what Dr. Flatt was alluding to, opportunities where to engage with workers who may not feel comfortable coming to us directly. And so having that partnership with them as we investigate the cases really helps open up sort of more information sharing about what's happening or what the employee is going through. So it's been a helpful partnership, and I think we certainly plan to continue that, whether it's on more of overtime and other meal break violations that they bring to us. We're certainly open to continuing that partnership with them.
Yeah, that's great. So it also sounds like it expands your capacity to have more eyes and ears on the ground with different industries and different ethnic groups as well.
Certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great to hear. I mean, I think I work in my district. We have 73 organizations we work with, and anytime we can work with them without us having to do the work is a great thing because it really expands our capacity. They know the folks, they know the institutions, they trust them, and oftentimes they trust them more than they trust us. So it's not a surprise to hear that it's been a great partnership. My last question is around funding. Now, my understanding is that OWS sometimes has issues with turnover, as we all do, which makes investigating these important cases difficult. Can you tell me, just what's going on with that and how we can help retain some of the staff to keep doing this work?
No, I appreciate the question. So, our Office of Wage Standards, we were looking at some of the numbers, and we have had some turnover because it is very specialized work. It's high tension work a lot of times, right? And so we utilize the Management Analyst Series, which is the generalist classification in the city, because it gives us access to the biggest pool of candidates to work from. At the same time, it does present competition for the employees who are looking for promotions and other things elsewhere from our opportunities. So our Office of Wage Standards over the last 5-7 years has experienced turnover about 40% every year. So every year we lose about 7 of the 18 people that we train. And what it means is, we're starting over with training all the time. Sometimes cases start and then stop. And, with investigations, even though you keep good notes and log when that person leaves, the next person, they want to know the workers. They want to know the person who's complaining and understand the case better. So there's a lot of starting and stopping. We've tried to explore different classifications, special investigator. But at the same time, when you have a specialized class that makes the same amount or less than the generalist class, people tend to go with the one that gives them more opportunity. So for us to do the work that's before us and in the CLA's recommendation, whether it's additional staffing or creative ideas to incentivize people or staff to stay in this section so that the investment we do in training for investigation stays there, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that. It's got to be very purpose driven, right? It's a very, very specific thing that this department is trying to accomplish, which I think speaks more to the benefit of having those relationships, right? The folks that are here making comment are purpose-driven, and they've been doing this for many years. And so I think it also speaks to the importance of having that relationship. Mr. Chair, I like the recommendations from the CLA, but there are some additional amendments that I would like to present. I don't know if this is an appropriate
Well,
time.
let's see if we have any more comments first. Do you have a comment? Okay, why don't you take your questions, your comments before we.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you all for being here today. According to the report that we have, multiple community stakeholders were consulted. And it looks like some of them that were consulted were great, but can anyone tell me what of the business community has been consulted?
None.
Okay.
And the answer to that is the labor community reached out to me early after the adoption of this report. To this day, the business community has not reached out to me. The instruction does not call for community stakeholder feedback.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say this again. It'll be the second time today. Anytime that we're developing policies, it seems as though the people impacted by those policies ought to be consulted and have a stake in the outcome. And I think it is really, really difficult to put us in the position of having to develop policy without an accurate or full record in front of us. So I will just note my disappointment with the lack of robust effort to elicit feedback, especially from our small business community, our restaurants, our retailers, small services, those sorts of things. I guess my next question then is on the table. I guess it's figure 1 on page 7. Do we know how many of those investigations resulted in adverse findings or enforcement actions?
I believe OWS would have that information.
Good afternoon again. In our 9 years of operating, we have had 858 investigations. Of the 704 that have been resolved, a third of them have been concluded with findings of a violation.
Okay. And that was over the entire life of the program?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate you being able to pull that data together for us. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. It was actually news to me that we could grant subpoena power to general managers, given that last year we had to amend our charter to give the same authority to the city attorney. And I really respect Mr. Reamer greatly, but what guardrails are in place and what process has to be followed to issue a subpoena? And are there some departments that can be empowered with that and others that can't? What are the guardrails around that? And why is it different than the city attorney?
The situation, this is Danya Minasian again. The situation with the city attorney was a little bit different because there was a request to have administrative subpoena power through city council that was denied. And later there was a change in state law that did provide city attorney offices with the ability to have administrative subpoena power. And then it was codified in the charter amendments as part of the charter amendment reform. The police power that's derived from the California Constitution to local entities is inherently provides you with the ability to enforce a law that was created by your body. And in that enforcement mechanism is the ability to investigate and have an administrative. This is not a legislative subpoena. This is not any other kind of subpoena. It's an administrative subpoena to obtain records. Even if you're just obtaining records to determine if it's within your jurisdiction to be able to investigate the allegations. That's inherent in your police powers as a city council. There are certain departments and commissions that are given subpoena powers through the charter, but that's just the baseline. And as part of your police power, you can give John Reamer or the BCA director the power to do that. And I believe there is an example of at SHRED in the Civil Rights Department, they do have an administrative subpoena right as well.
Okay.
The safeguards can be worked out as a matter of policy, so I'm happy to work with whatever council office to outline the way that the subpoena will be given, but I can guarantee you that in the past 9 years, we've only had to use it once, and it's only when employers either completely deny that OWS has any jurisdiction to obtain any records, and or OWS has asked repeatedly, more than I would say 15 times at least, to get the records, and they've always denied the request.
Okay, well, fascinating. Thank you for the explanation on that. And thank you for the answer about, sort of what the process is going to be. Again, this is the policy work that I wish we were doing before we were voting to move things forward, because we just haven't had those conversations yet about what that looks like. Switching gears again, how exactly is a co-enforcement model going to work, right? Your report identifies limitations because of privacy issues, but Henry, I think I heard you even say before, we haven't really fleshed out the details yet of what can we share, what can't we share. As a practical matter, what does a program like that possibly look like?
We actually, I would say we as an OWS, we do already do some co-enforcement with community-based organizations, and we have a method in place. The community-based organization representative needs to get consent from the complainant in order to get whatever information would have been shared with the complainant with the community-based organization. Those forms are already in place, and this is what's already being done.
I'm just curious, because I don't know the answer to this. What is the basis, the legal basis or authority for a community-based organization to do that work? They're not certified investigators, they're not lawyers, they're not members of a government entity or agency. So I'm just curious, what is the statutory or other legal authority that even gives them the power to do this?
Well, the community-based organization is helping bring information to the Office of Wage Standards for the Office of Wage Standards investigators to complete their own investigation. The Office of Wage Standards is required to have its independent investigation, and the way it's set up is so that they have an independent investigation. They're welcoming any efforts from the community-based organizations to bring information to light that maybe they were not able to glean from the complainant or from the employer, and they'll be happy to look at that in order to make their final decision, but they are the ones making the decision.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. But one more question about it. Who pays the community-based organizations to do that work?
So we have, so I think there's two different scenarios I'll just describe. There is the scenario where, the community-based organizations, through whatever mechanisms of funding they have their own, have worked with workers, or workers come to them as a community organization, and then they come to us as a representative. There is a separate sort of track where we are also, as part of the ordinance for the Office of Wage Standards, we're asked to put together a bench of outreach community organizations that can help do outreach. We do issue task orders, solicitations on occasion for help with doing outreach, informing workers about the different minimum wage laws and labor standards in the city. So in that way, there is some funding that could go to those of community organizations, but actually through the budget process, that funding has actually been depleted for the most part, so we are not doing that as much anymore.
I saw some limited information about budget impacts in here and the requests for additional various positions that would be needed to grow and launch something like this. I'm not sure that that is an accurate picture or that it's fully inclusive of what we're actually talking about. And I think that those numbers very well could change depending on what the back end process ultimately ends up looking like. So I don't know. I note that because I feel like we're being asked to make decisions again without a complete record or a full picture in front of us about what the implications and impacts are going to be.
Yep, so some of the recommendations in the report would have no budgetary impact because in crafting those recommendations, we were cognizant of the financial condition of the city, such as the subpoena authority and granting OWS additional authorities for meal break and rest break. The additional recommendations, such as proactive enforcement, in consultating with OWS, they believe that they could use more resources to do that effectively and to triage the complaints. But I think I worked with them, and if they disagree, they can let us know.
The only thing I'd add is on some of the things with the additional enforcement authority, obviously we have a caseload today. We have about 180 cases. So, and that is basically, you asked about the violations, about a third of the investigations result in a violation. There are another third that we've had to refer to other agencies, oftentimes overtime, rest and meal breaks. So we could easily see our workload at minimum maybe doubling with if no change in staff. So what that would mean is either, if there's additional resources, that would be helpful so that it doesn't impact the caseload that we have now. If the approach is that we are not able to get additional resources, recognizing our financial situation, what we would look to do is try to attempt to phase in some of the recommendations, or maybe overtime, start with overtime and see how we kind of develop that expertise. And then, work with the staff that we have, train them up on the overtime investigations. Certainly there will be some level of impact, again, to the pace at which we can close out the existing cases. So, there's always going to be some give and take, but we'll try to make it work.
And I mentioned that because, again, and these comments are similar to what I said on the last item, if we are going to take on the responsibility for investigating and prosecuting these kinds of things, it's a process that necessarily involves a lot of work and needs to be robust. If you're going to do an investigation, it needs to be thorough, which means creating your evidentiary record through witnesses and documents. And I think there are other elements to it as well: notice, opportunity to cure, discussions around what the enforcement penalties and remedies are going to look like. All of the same concerns I had in our last discussion seem relevant here as well. So I just want us to be mindful. Maybe it doubles your workload, but depending on how complex some of the complaints or allegations that you get are, really can be very, very time consuming. And when I was an attorney working on employment and wage and hour things, these cases could take hours and hours and hours, even when it's an administrative DLSE matter. Are there going to be hearings, rights of appeals? You're adjudicating facts in front of people. And so I don't want to minimize in any way how heavy the lift may ultimately be for you.
Sorry, it is absolutely a heavy lift, but we're ready to do it if we have the resources to do it. But it is a complex. The application of overtime and meal and rest breaks will involve an analysis of wage orders. They're so complex. There will be such a need for collaboration between OWS and the City Attorney's Office to just determine which wage order an employee falls under, for example. And we do have the administrative hearing issue. It's all set up. OWS was set up with that in mind for due process. So we will just follow that same pattern and that same way of doing the investigations. But the complexity will increase, but depending on the resources available, of course, we'll be ready to do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the answers there. Mr. Chair, I think there really is no dispute here. Wage theft and other violations need to be addressed, and they need to be remedied. And I am open to us doing that as a city if we were appropriately staffed and resourced to do that. But I am concerned that once again, we are being asked to do this without any consultation or input from the very community that is being impacted by the decisions that we're about to make. I mean, every single day, there are restaurants closing all over the city. There are new business closures everywhere we look. And I worry for our retailers and small businesses. And so while I would be open to doing this, I would ask perhaps that the CAO go out and conduct that analysis and elicit that input before we move forward with an actual request to the city attorney to draft an ordinance.
Okay.
For clarification, you think you said the CAO? Do you mean the CLA?
CLA? CLA, sorry.
All right,
Mr. Chair.
Any other comments?
That was it in terms of my comments and my suggestion on what we do here.
Okay. Mr. Soto Martinez.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I hear you, Ms. Park. In fact, one of the, I do have an amendment on this item, and one of them is, item E says outreach to community-based organizations, industry representatives, and business organizations in formulating the recommendations in the report. So one of the items in my amendment includes the feedback from the business community. But Mr. Chair, I would like to entertain my amendment to this. Can we?
You may
do it? Okay. The clerk should have the language on this.
All right, so the amendments will be to include additional amendments. So in item 1, we're going to add 1D, make any technical changes deemed necessary to effectuate this policy. In recommendation 2, to add the following language after instruct OWS 2, and the language is implement and report back on the following. In 2A, the language to amend is in 2A, replacing the word develop with development of, and additionally, after the words workers impacted, adding the language whether the employer is a repeat violator. In 2B, after the words completed investigations, adding the additional language that resulted in a violation and associated. In 2C, and adding the additional sub-recommendation, 2C, identification of occupational groups in the city with historically high rates of wage theft and other related workplace violations as priorities for targeted proactive enforcement. Additional sub-recommendation, 2D, a strategy of pursuing individual liability of business owners who try to evade enforcement for effective enforcement collections. An additional sub-recommendation, 2E, outreach to community-based organizations, industry representatives, and business organizations in formulating the recommendations in the report. And replacing recommendation 5 with instruct CLA in consultation with BCA, Bureau of Contract Administration, City Attorney, Los Angeles Fire Department, Los Angeles Police Department, Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, Department of City Planning, and any other relevant departments to review and report on additional enforcement mechanisms that could be used to address noncompliance. And in recommendation 6, adding the following language after new positions requested and strategies and resources needed to retain staff. Do we have a second for these?
I'll second it.
I have a clarifying question. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Soto Martinez, I think your amendments here are actually good, but I can't tell from them. This comes before we draft the ordinance. We get this information, review it, assess it, and then prepare the ordinance?
No, these additional amendments are just additive to the CLA recommendations on today's item. So we want to send it all based on what the report says.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Price.
Aye.
Councilmember Soto Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Hidalgo.
Yes.
Councilmember Nazarian, absent. Councilmember Park.
I am so sorry I can't vote to move an ordinance when our business community has not even been consulted. I'm a no.
That's 3 ayes. This item is approved as amended.
Okay. What other matters are before us at this time?
The desk is cleared.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.